I tell a lot of fathers they need to pick something on a weekly basis where they want to have a difference in behavior. So if you think about physical fitness, everybody understands physical fitness. Physical fitness is your physical strength. If you're going to run a 5K or 5 miles, 5 mile race, but you've never done that before, on your first day of training, are you going to run 5 miles?
Welcome to Gap to Gig, the show for dads navigating the in-between season when work, identity, and priorities start asking different questions. Here we talk about what that season looks like and how to move through it with intention. I'm your host, Michael Jacobs, and today's guest is Colin C. Thompson. Colin's an entrepreneur, coach, and speaker who focuses on something a lot of us feel but don't always know how to name: mental fitness. He's the founder of Olige Enterprises and a certified positive intelligence coach who helps people move from chaos to calm in practical ways. What stood out to me about Colin is how he connects performance, presence, and peace of mind, especially for people navigating pressure at work and at home at the same time. Because if you're dad trying to show up in both places, that internal pressure always feels like it's there. Colin, really glad to have you here. Welcome to Gap to Gig. Thanks for joining me today.
Mr. Michael, thanks for having me. And I got to say that I think all people know this. Our minds can be our best friends
Yeah.
or our absolute worst enemy. And unfortunately, for a lot of us fathers, at some point in our fatherhood career, our mindsets were our absolute worst enemy. So I hope today we can look at how fatherhood and our best friend, our mind, can both show up.
Absolutely. I love that. So I want to start with a bit of this mindset talk in that for dads, there's always seems to be this challenge of balance between work and home. And I think a lot of us face this challenge, but we don't always have the language for it. When you look at dads who are trying to do meaningful work and still be present at home, where do you see things start to break down?
I've noticed that the challenge that fathers have, and even mothers have, but parents have with trying to do work. We all want to do meaningful work, but trying to do work in general, especially in working at home, is boundaries. And I'll tell you what I mean. Fathers working at home or fathers bringing work home,
Mhm.
there has to be a boundary made between work time and father time. And what I mean by that is, I work from home. And now my kids know that when daddy's in the office, the door's closed, he is in work
Yeah.
mode. But once I shift from work mode and come out of my office, I'm in father mode. And in father mode, I don't do any work. So for example, I'm saying boundaries, perhaps 7 p.m., 6 p.m. is your cutoff. And once that clock hits 6 p.m., you're not doing any more work. You're with your family. And when you're with your family, so it's like when you're at work, be at work. When you're with your family, be with your family. And a lot of parents, a lot of fathers fall into the trap, especially when they're working from home, that they're working 24/7 at home.
Right.
And then the kids may feel like they're bothering them, this and that. But if you establish those boundaries, and I've had to lock my door. So when my kids were younger and didn't understand boundaries, I've had to lock my door. So after times, kids recognize those what a closed door means, quite frankly. So my kids now know that if daddy's door is closed, he's working. But for fathers, sometimes we think that we must always be on.
Mhm.
Yes, I agree. So having those boundaries and really establishing that with your family, getting support from your wife and helping your kids understand, even for your wife, she must also understand that when that door is closed, daddy is working.
Right.
So boundaries is the key word.
Yeah, I appreciate that it is challenging oftentimes to set up those boundaries. But what I like you said is that when you're working, you focus on your work, and with your family, you're focused on your family. To me, that's presence, right? Like you have to be present for what it is in that moment, right? You have to be intentional about that. So when you are working, you're focused on work. And when you are spending time with your family, your friends, whatever it may be, you're focused on them in that moment. I don't know if it's possible to always be on, right? Like sometimes you just have an off day, right? Or it's like you
Right.
try your best to stay present in that moment. Presence can kind of ebb and flow a little bit too. But to just like, you close your door to is a symbol for daddy's working, the door is open. It's probably also a symbol for daddy's available. He's present, right? So it's like there's almost like a yin and a yang to setting these boundaries, right?
Well, well, kind of because sometimes the door is open. That doesn't mean dad's not working anymore. It might not mean dad's ready to be present because sometimes there is transition time, and I can tell you many a days I'm in here working, and I hear my two kids going crazy with boundless energy, which means
Yeah.
noise. And then when I'm finished working, sometimes I'm tired and I'm not ready to go into the room where they have their 2-year old, 3-year old, 4-year old, 5-year old energy. So I have to sort of get myself prepared for that. But if you think about being mindful of why we're trying to do this, and a lot of times it depends on your household when you grow up as a child.
Right.
And I'm trying to create a different household than where I grew up. I grew up in a household where my parents argued frequently. So I try not to show that side to my kids here. So when I go out, I'm not going out. I'm going out being mindful of trying to have a different environment for my children. So even if I am tired, and let me just say this, Mr. Michael, it took years. My oldest son is almost 7 years old, and it took about 5 years for me to be able to do this. So it does take time.
Okay.
I don't think it sounds
Right.
easy, but now I'm to a point where when I go outside this door, I say to myself, Colin, once you walk out this door, what are the kids going to see? So when I come out, the first thing I try to do is find them and give them a hug, give them a kiss, right? Make a little game out of it. And if I'm too tired, I'll go to the bathroom and sit there for a while and regain my energy. But it's important that when I come out and I'm on as a parent, I do that when I'm in front of my children.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to me, what strikes me about what you just said is there's this third element, right? You have to be present when you're working. You have to be present with your family, but you also have to take care of yourself too. You have to be present for yourself sometimes. And like you mentioned, these transition times of you finish work, but you're not quite ready to join the chaos or whatever might be happening on the other side of the wall, right? You do need to give yourself an opportunity to shift your mind a little bit, right? Relax your mind. And that could look different for everybody, whatever it takes. And, maybe you sneak off to go take 5 minutes to just decompress before you put yourself out there. There's probably also a whole nother discussion about like taking care of yourself outside of those two times, right? You do need time for yourself, whether that's to exercise or to explore things that are interesting to you, whatever it may be. And you talk a lot about mental fitness. In simple terms, what does that actually mean in the context of being a dad?
Michael, before I ask that question, you mentioned chaos. And I smile because my kids have nicknames. And their nicknames are mayhem and chaos. My son is mayhem and my daughter is chaos. Right? It makes me smile.
Those are great superhero
Yeah.
names.
So mental fitness is our ability to maintain a positive over negative mindset as we go through life's ups and downs. And it doesn't mean all being positive, but it means not going to the negative side. So in the context of being a father, it's really what you want your kids to see. Again, I'm going to say this a lot. A lot of times we have to go and think of WDMDD, right? What did my dad do? Meaning, how did my dad handle these scenarios when I was a child? And did I enjoy that? Or that's something that I want to change with my kids? So with mental fitness, I look at how, and when my son turned 2, that's when I really saw that I needed to master my mental fitness because before 2 years old, kids are just so cute.
Yep.
Once they turn 2, it's like overnight, right? Something changes and they become, I don't want to say difficult, but things just change. So for me personally, that's what I had to say. How can I make my sons go to bedtime not not filled with tension? I learned that you can't yell at a 2-year-old and have them go to sleep. It's not going to work.
Yep.
So in the context of being a father, you really have to look at how can and again, it's all about us. As our kids give us a stimulus, how can we change? How can we stop getting frustrated and acting like, why can't this kid understand what he's supposed to do?
Yeah.
What he's supposed to do. Yet there's a 2-year-old kid. And what helped me was realizing, wait a second, he's just being a 2-year-old kid. So once I just said, you know what, let me not rush about getting him to sleep. And Mr. Michael, it goes back to also understanding I was trying to get him to sleep because I wanted to get back to work.
Mm.
So again, once I had those boundaries and say, okay, I'm going to stop working for the night, I then had no rush. So I was able there to just stay calm, play games with him, read books with him. So to answer your question, mental fitness, we have to look at how can we try to maintain a sense of calm when our children are being children. And I'm not talking about teenagers, 'cause I haven't dealt with teenagers yet, right? But I can deal with under young kids, younger
Sure.
kids.
Sure. No, that's fair. Teenagers are a whole nother beast. I'll tell you that. But different set of challenges. They still don't go to sleep, but that's neither here nor there, at least not in this house. So you said something to me previously that I found really interesting, which is that the real challenge isn't out there. It's how we respond to these challenges, right? How does that show up in day-to-day life?
What do you want your children to remember about you? And children remember a lot as they're growing. What I mean is, my son is 7. He remembers things for the past 5 years.
Yep.
He has a view of his father. My daughter is 4.5. She remembers things for the past 2.5 years. She knows her father, how the father will react. Do you want your kids to be intimidated or scared by you? Now, it is 2026. Back in the 70s and 80s, a lot of fathers ruled with that hard hand. Yes, the kids must respect me. And when I say jump, jump, because they were raised like that as well.
Right.
So it's sort of, yeah, so it's sort of like, how does showing up and being able to take their energy, taking their disobedience, and not reacting in an aggressive manner for not just myself, but a lot of the fathers who I coach, whether it's one-on-one coaching, whether it's group coaching, it's really about going back to when you were their age. How would you want your father to have reacted? Not how they did.
Right.
How would you want that? So it's reflection. And if you can reflect before episode, it's much easier. And what I mean by that is, as fathers, we go through the same scenarios frequently. You know how your kids are going to act. You know how you're going to act. So instead of trying to react in the moment, it's saying to yourself, okay, if I think back to yesterday or day before, I acted a certain way. As I visualize it next time, I want to take a different reaction.
Right.
So it's reflection and then visualize it next time. And working on that, it may not work. You may have to visualize it a few times before it actually happens. But that's how you learn to change your behavior. It's not changing behavior in the moment because again, you visualized a change of a different reaction so many times that when it happens, you rehearsed it. So when things happen in the moment, you're ready for it. Did that make sense?
It does. It does. It to me, what I hear is responding with intention, right? Of you're not going to be able to respond perfectly every time because you haven't necessarily experienced everything already. But learn from those experiences, think them through a little bit so that the next time it does happen or something similar happens, you have a response that you are comfortable with. I think the other thing that I'm kind of pulling out from what you're saying is the end goal is to model the behaviors for your kids that you want them to grow up with.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, whether or not your father before you, or your parents before you, modeled the behaviors that you would like to see in your kids doesn't really matter. It's what do you want to see your kids do going forward? And the only way to do that, you could tell your kids all day to do the same thing over and over. They won't do it. But the second you do it yourself, they see and they will repeat that, right? especially at the
Right.
younger ages of like, oh, okay, that's not how you respond in a particular situation. You don't throw a temper tantrum every time you want something. That's not how you get what you want. Instead, the appropriate reaction is X, Y, or Z, right? It's like you need to give not just yourself, but your kids the opportunity to succeed. You have to intentionally model what you expect from them. It,
Michael, I'm sorry, you mentioned intentionally.
yeah,
And that is the key word because intentionally means you're rehearsing,
yeah,
you're practicing, and you're aware,
right.
right? So this is something you're working on it just as if you're trying to get a six pack. Six pack on your abs, not just a six pack. Let me not say that, right? But intentionally, right? Which means it's important and you're working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, regardless of how many kids you have, there's always this pressure, right? The A lot of dads I talk to, they feel like I'm under pressure. Like maybe I'm under pressure at work. Maybe I'm just don't feel like I'm doing enough for my family, or maybe it's, I want my kid to be able to do this and I don't know how to do it. I got to figure this out. We tend to, a lot of dads I talk to tend to put unnecessary pressure on themselves. Where do you see that happening with dads right now?
Yeah, and it's interesting the word unnecessary because that could be not debated, but what does that mean unnecessary? Because for a lot of dads, they really feel like it's necessary.
Yep.
Dads have pressure. Mothers have pressure as well. It's typically a different kind of pressure. It's typically there's the gender roles. Those stereotypes still do exist. I found that in my experience, a lot of fathers or dads try to compare themselves with others. And it doesn't start when they get married and buy their first house and the kids are going to school. It starts when they're children
Yep.
and they've been raised. Their parents say, "Man, look at this person compared to you." And growing up, they're always, and this isn't a dad thing. This is a human
Right.
thing, right? Comparing ourselves to others. Now, when we become fathers, it's now there's a sense of responsibility. Whereas, the shoes my kids wear, the clothes my kids wear, the car we're driving, it's not just what they feel comfortable in, it's comparison. One thing I've noticed I've talked with fathers, their kids have no idea what rich is, poor is. All they know is their house.
Yeah.
And most kids are okay with their environment. It's the parents who want to 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 keep up with the Joneses, for example. So when we say unnecessary pressure, it's the same pressure that they've had all their life comparing themselves. Now, one thing that I've tried to do here is, now I'm an older father. Let me say that. As I mentioned, I had my first child when I was 45 years old. He's almost 7 now. I am 52 years old. So having gone through life, being maybe hopefully about 15 years from retirement, my mindset's different
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses,
Right.
right? I can give two, I don't care much about the
Yep.
Joneses. I care about what's going on in my household. And at 52, the reality is I may pass any day. So I am much more focused on what my kids are going to remember about me and the experiences that we have now.
Yep.
So when I talk about pressure, the only pressure I try to put on, because you put pressure on yourself, it goes down to your family. So the only pressure I put on myself now is no, no, I don't put pressure. And I'm living in Shanghai, China, so the pressure here is much different than what it would be in the U.S.
Sure.
just due to the cost of living. But with some of my clients, gentlemen, fathers are in the U.S. and I don't give my clients advice. We work through. But one of the things they've realized is how they release their pressure is they go for walks. And this might not make sense, especially if you're not a person that walks, but they go for walks to deflate, to deflate. And what that does when they go for a walk with no dogs, no phone, no music, and just walk for 30, 40 minutes, it helps them just to clear their mindset. And after a few weeks of walking, they're able to they're able to prioritize better, and what they thought was so important, the pressure, it doesn't feel the same. Doesn't feel the same at
Yeah.
all.
I'm a walker. I've discovered this in the last couple of years. And that's exactly what I do to clear my mind. I go for long walks, right? Like enough to break a sweat. I'm not running. I can't stand running, but like I will walk. I love to walk. It just clears my mind. I don't know what it is about it. It just works for me, right? I'm wondering, we quibbled over pressure being unnecessary. Is the right term really self-imposed? Is it self-imposed pressure that dads are feeling? Because keeping up with the Joneses, that's a choice, right? Whether or not you're going to keep up with them. Where you say you don't.
I'm not sure for the choice. I'm not sure for the choice because at the same time, you might have your spouse in your ear
Mm,
talking about, oh, so and so just went on vacation. Now, she's not saying what about us, but it's sort of like, I have pride. I have
yeah,
pride. If so and so can go on a European vacation, hey, why can't we go as well?
right,
So there's also pressure that's put there as well. They go to the work water cooler conversations. Yeah, I just bought this brand new blah 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 shiny thing,
yeah,
right? So it's not just the father. It's the father saying, "Hey, we work in the same company, or we both breathe oxygen. Why can't I provide those things for my family as well?
yeah,
Or even on the other side, why hasn't my career went better? Or why can't my spouse and I get along better? Or why is my kid not acting the way they should act?" So the pressure is real. The pressure is real. But the question is, how do you react to the pressure?
yeah.
Right? Does pressure take you to a negative place, or does pressure just make you think of ways to use your imagination better? And as we talked before, our imagination isn't there. So with no imagination, we have no outlet, we have no ideas,
Right.
right? We sort of just you get stuck with that pressure.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about burnout a little bit. You work with a lot of mid-career professionals. How often do you see burnout that isn't necessarily about workload, but maybe something a bit deeper?
The burnout is rarely just about workload, because when I say workload, typically we're talking about the amount of stuff that we do in our career, in our profession, to satisfy our manager, to satisfy the company, to make sure that we're going to be there ongoing and be able to get that paycheck. It's when there it's when the boundaries aren't there. It's when we don't recognize that there is no, for example, if you get into an argument with your spouse, your children, on the way to work, when you go to the parking lot in your job and open the door, go to your building, swipe your key card, the challenges from home just don't disappear. They go with you into work. So when you get to work now and sit down, you're still thinking about losing the argument or the argument. That may be 9 a.m. From 9 to 11 a.m., you maybe get about 20 minutes of real production. So my point here is, as you're going through that workday, the challenges you're having at home in your personal life impact how much work you're getting done. And of course, with not getting much work done, you then must bring that work home with you. And that's sometimes how that workload tends to build up. And we feel that now at home, we must make up for the work. One of the things that I say my clients, but help these dads do is to, as you're if you had an argument with your kids, your spouse, whatever, on your way to work in the car or on your way from your kitchen table to your office, how do you let it go for the time period, right? How do you not bring that with you, even though it's there? And it goes back to what we're saying, is how we react to these scenarios. And it goes back to, again, right, finding time to visualize how you would act differently,
Yeah.
right? You can put things on the back burner, turn it down, and then when you leave your office, you bring those things back to the front. But how do you do that? And it does take time. It's not easy to do, but it's a learned ability. It's a learned muscle. Learning how to turn things off, go to the office, get things done. When you leave the office, boundary again, and then address what still was simmering on the back burner.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense of like in the moment, it's difficult to respond, but when you can slow it down, you can take a moment to kind of figure out what is the right response. You talk a lot about self-sabotaging thoughts, right? A lot of your work is around that that area, and it's not always easy to quiet those thoughts. What are some of the most common types of self-sabotaging thoughts that you see in dads?
I gotta be tough.
Hmm.
I gotta be hard. I can't really. My wife could never see me cry. So I see a lot of fathers believing that they must maintain this giant strongman mindset. And what happens there is they feel very, very lonely because they're not able to share, even with their friends, their other father friends, right? Now they may be able to share more, but typically on a day-to-day basis, we're holding so much inside. And what I've found is we talk about self-sabotage. Imagine a little version of yourself sitting on your shoulder, telling you, don't show fear, don't show concern, don't tell your spouse you're feeling this way, right? Don't sit with your kids and just hug them and say, "I love you." I need this. Make me smile, son. Right? So it is self sabotage because the more you tell yourself, "Be tough," don't share, don't show emotion, the more you feel like you have no way out. And what happens is with many fathers is one way out. I can't get a drink. Let me just take a drink, and a drink will make you feel good. That first drink, the third drink makes those negative emotions now come out, and you can see where it snowballs from there.
Yeah.
So the most common self-sabotaging thoughts I hear from my clients are: be tough, don't show emotion, you're alone.
So clearly, drinking or coping with them in some negative way is not the best way to handle these self-sabotaging thoughts or ideas. What's a better way to handle them? And like, especially when you're in the middle of something very stressful, perhaps at home.
Yep. So when you're in the middle of something stressful, don't try to fix it. Do whatever you can to get out of do whatever you can to ride that situation out until it's finished. And that might mean acting a fool or reacting the wrong way. That is okay. And I say it's okay. It's okay because perhaps your family is used to seeing that. So it's nothing new. Nothing new. But after that scenario is finished, we again need to go back and reflect. It goes back to why, as a father, do we want to be better? So to handle it, I look at it like having empathy, right? And when you have empathy, you must first have empathy for yourself. So when you feel like you're being stressful and acting loud or acting negative way, you're first damaging yourself. But then look at your children and your spouse. When we're acting in a negative way and dealing with stress negatively, what are we doing to our kids? Are they seeing their father and are they getting scared? When you walk in the front door, are your kids going into the bedroom closing the door? Or are they coming downstairs and say, "Hey, daddy," when you all are eating dinner together, are your kids talking to you or are they just trying to eat quick and go away? Are they on the devices? So I think it's really about being intentional. And by being intentional, you first have to understand that when you're acting negatively, you're damaging yourself first. And if you're damaged, you can't really be there. You can't show up properly and I should say damaged, excuse me. But if you're not yet able to manage your mental fitness, again, mental fitness, ability to maintain a positive mindset, then you're not going to be able to show up right for your family.
Right.
So it all starts with how you handle things internally first.
Right. I think you make a great point too. Like a lot of dads are physically there, right? But they might not be, they might mentally be somewhere else, right? Maybe they're having those self-sabotaging thoughts, and so they're not present in the moment with their families, or maybe something else going on. Maybe there's it could be a lot of different things, I suppose. What's kind of the first step to closing that gap between being physically there and be mentally somewhere else?
It goes back to the boundaries,
Hmm.
right? Being physically there, the boundaries, and which when you said boundaries, that's a conversation that takes place with your spouse, and it depends on how old your kids are. If your kids are above 7, 8, and older teenagers, you can explain what boundaries mean. Younger kids, you just have to show them what boundaries mean. So it's a little different. So if you know that if you need time to deflate after a long day, then your boundary may be once daddy comes home from work, the first half hour, don't mess with him. And it may take time to stick because in this time, it's sort of creating a habit.
Right.
When my father came home from work, we knew he's going to come home. He's going to go downstairs to the bar in our basement, and he's going to stay there for about a half hour. He's going to deflate, right? Some fathers will come home and they'll go for a walk. They'll do things immediately to make that boundary clear. Okay. There's come home from work or finish working. Then there's the timeout, the rest period. And then there's, okay, I'm ready to be super daddy. But that must be established over time. It goes back to what you said before, intentionality, intention, right? You have to make this, you have to make this something you practice and work on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Because without boundaries, it's a mosh. Your children don't know when daddy's on, work's on. Yeah, so you have to be intentional about setting the boundaries.
So let's talk about practice more, because you talk about mental fitness, and to be fit, to have fitness of any sort, physical, mental, whatever, you need to practice. You need to exercise. You need to do something. So what's a realistic, simple, daily mental fitness practice? What would that actually look like for a dad?
Right. So when we talk about mental fitness practice, it, so mental fitness again, our ability to maintain a positive mindset as we go through life, and a mindset called positive intelligence. And it's really help us to understand what does it mean to be able to stay positive and not, hey, I'm happy every day, but more optimistic every day on a daily basis, looking at how to improve on a daily basis. I tell a lot of fathers they need to pick something on a weekly basis where they want to have a difference in behavior. So if you think about physical fitness, everybody understands physical fitness. Physical fitness is your physical strength. If you're going to run a 5K or 5 miles, 5 mile race, but you've never done that before, on your first day of training, are you going to run 5 miles?
Never. No way. I mean,
I was like, okay, I forgot you hate running.
but I mean, even still, I mean, to answer your question, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't
You would
run.
not do
You
that.
can't run that. You're not in shape to do
Right.
that, right? You've got to practice.
Absolutely. So what you would do is you would go to the track, to the gym, wherever, and maybe day one is half a mile.
Yeah.
And over time, you would increase your physical fitness, which means you're getting stronger, getting stronger. You can handle more distance. Where I see a lot of fathers who come to me for coaching or group coaching, where they mess up, they may say, my teenage daughter, my kids are driving me crazy, and I need to build up my mental fitness. I want to start with this. And what they want to start with, they want to start with that 5 mile race or with their spouse. And I say, well, I don't think your mental fitness yet is ready for that. So how can as a father, how can you first work on a pet peeve? And I'll tell you, and this is real life. I'll tell you one of the things that I was. If you saw me 3 years ago, and I'm walking in the morning, the lights are very low, and barefoot, I step on a Lego, I am going to explode. Pet peeve, right? However, if my daughter and my son, we have a larger issue, something bigger, I'm not going to start there. So I tell dads, find something that makes you upset that your children do, but it makes you 5 to 10 minutes upset. Say to yourself, again, the next time that happens, I'm going to take a different, more positive or more calm reaction. See, it's your Lego. Next time, step on a Lego. bite your tongue, pick it up, and put it in a box, and don't get upset. And if you keep doing that, and from bigger pet peeves, then one of the real challenges, your kids talking back to you or this or that, you be you better be able to handle that because you spent time building up your mental fitness. So the one tip I'll give you, your dad audience, is find something that now triggers you, but triggers you for 5 minutes, and then work on not letting that trigger you any further.
Right. Take the first step in that process.
Literally, take the
Yeah, I
first
guess take
step.
the first. I didn't totally missed that pun, but yes, take the first step of like, okay, I stepped on a Lego. I'm just going to put it aside, right? Do that a couple times, and you can. I think what you're saying is you can then build upon that to strengthen your mental fitness, so that that becomes something that doesn't trigger the same response in you anymore. And so when you do get to those bigger challenges, that you have something to fall back on. You have this
You have momentum.
experience, right?
You have momentum and belief. It's worked before, and you know that over time you can build up those stronger mental fitness muscles.
Yep. Absolutely. So this is kind of a existential question, but like the next time a dad walks in the door after work, let's hope they don't step on a Lego, but what's one thing you hope he does differently?
Be different. What I mean by that is, earlier I said that when we act a certain way with our family, most likely it's not in you. They're used to that. So as you're getting out of your car, as you're walking in to your door, be intentional and saying to yourself, when I walk through this door, as daddy, as dad, I'm going to set the tone for the rest of the evening. So as you get into walk the door, what tone do you want to set? You want to set a tone of gray and dark, or do you want to set a more happy, productive tone? When you walk through that door, and I know a lot of fathers are going to say, "Oh, that's tough," but if you're able to do this tough but simple activity, it might change things. When you walk in the door, kids, come here, give me a hug. That's it. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. That's simple. And if you keep doing that every day, after just a week and a half, if your kids are home, right? A week and a half, when you get home and you don't hug with daddy, where's the hug? Right? So, and that sort of thing does set a tone, because if that's not what you usually do, your family sees you doing something different that's positive. And if you have teen kids, they're going to say, I don't want to hug you. Ew. But they're going to do it anyway, right? And for younger kids, they're going to love it. And here's the thing that a lot of fathers report back to me saying, they say, my wife was shocked and she loved it. And after a little while, she said, hey, where's my hug?
Yeah, you can see that.
So something simple like that, it goes a long way.
And again, you're now modeling the behavior that you hope that your kids will take on
Yeah,
when they grow up and leave the house and become their own self-sufficient, young adults.
and it shows fathers that we hug.
Yeah.
Right. It shows fathers that we hug and we're open and whatnot.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. That's a great point. Love that. All right, so we're going to go from the sentimental and serious to the not so serious, the speed round. 5 quick questions have nothing to do with anything. And we're starting with, what's the first kid show theme song that comes to mind?
Comfort theater.
Interesting. Very cool. What was your very first job?
The fried girl at rallies.
Oh, wow. Well, how old were you?
Official job. Official job.
Yeah,
Okay, official
sure.
job, right? So my first real job, I would say, was snowing driveways in the neighborhood, making money, cutting lawns. That was the first unofficial job because we were young. But the first official, tax form, whatever, W-2 was when I was 15 and a half years old, working the summer at rallies, doing French fries.
Wow. Would you rather spend 24 hours with a toddler-sized T-Rex or a T-Rex-sized toddler?
A T-Rex sized toddler, because toddlers typically still don't have teeth.
That might be the best reason I've heard yet. Smartest reason, at least. That's a great point. Never thought about that. Right, what's your go-to karaoke song or the one you would sing if you had to?
Bruno Mars, 24K. With my wife. But for with my kids, I'm thinking Elmo's President.
Okay. You're playing to your audience, I see. Smart. And finally, what's the weirdest thing you've ever carried around in your bag, briefcase, or pockets?
The weirdest thing I've ever carried around in my bag, briefcase, or pockets. And I'm talking slow and repeating the question because I've learned as a professional speaker, when you do that, it gives you more time to think about the answer.
Yeah.
So the weirdest thing I've ever had in my bag, briefcase, or pocket. I don't want to incriminate myself, so I refuse to answer this question.
Nothing that's not so incriminating?
The weirdest thing. I'm sure it has something to do with my kids and slime. Because I am not a fan of slime whatsoever. So to me, it's just nasty word. And I have had to carry a bag with my kids' slime in it. I'm gonna say slime.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I am all slimed out. I hope I never have to have slime in my pockets. Yeah, that's not a great thing. I guess, but kids love it. So this is great. Colin, before we wrap up, I want to make sure people know where to find you and learn more about your work. What's the best place for people to connect with you, and what are you most excited about right now you want to share with them?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me would be via my website where you can reach out to me. www.oligye.com, oligye.com. And what I'm most excited about is the Fabritor assessment. This is an assessment that will help fathers, kids, mothers, people learn more about their inner voices. And we're having inner voices who typically are telling us or leading us to negative emotions. So taking the assessment and learning more about being able to do a readout and talk to fathers about the results is what I'm very excited about. So if you want to learn more about those inner voices that are driving you, controlling you, olig.com/SA. www.olig.com/SA.
Excellent. We'll put that in the show notes for sure for everyone to check out. Colin, I really appreciate the conversation. The talk about mental fitness, I think, is something we probably need to talk about more, particularly as men, as dads. It's something that we talk about physical fitness very easily, very frequently, I think. We don't talk about the mental aspect of it enough. And you make it approachable and do it in a way that feels grounded and yet still really honest, right? And really real. And so I appreciate you bring that to the table today. I think a lot of dads are going to hear themselves or parts of themselves in this conversation and walk away with something that they can actually use. So thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. And finally, before you go, if you're a dad listening to this and you find yourself in between navigating a season that feels different, head to gap2gig.com, subscribe to the Gap to Gig newsletter. It comes out every Friday, and it's a quieter space to reflect on work, life, and what really matters right now. If this conversation resonated, consider sending it to another dad who might need to hear it. Until next time, I'm Michael Jacobs. Thanks for showing up and listening to Gap to Gig.